Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. We're continuing with our 2022 season previews. As we take a look at the Auburn Tigers, this is a very interesting team heading into 2022. You had some drama, I think would be the best way to describe it, heading into the season. A lot of players outside of the program, former players, expressing their lack of satisfaction with Brian Harsin and how he was coaching. My take on it is, if the players aren't within the program, I don't really care what they have to say. It seems like the players who are still with Auburn have a lot of good things to say about Coach Harsin, and I think that bodes well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you lost a ton of transfers. I mean, yeah, Bo Nix left, JJ Pegas left on defense. Like, you lost some guys, but, like, the guys who are carrying the load are mostly back,
Yes.
I'd say. So it's not like you were losing, like, the stars, like the Derek Halls, the running backs, some of those guys who Popo, like you're keeping the guys who mattered to the team. And yeah, if the guys who are upset were upset, it's like, yeah, but they weren't the ones carrying the freight anyway. So whatever.
Yeah, before we get into it, just wanted to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel. Again, it's been awesome talking ball with you guys in the comment section. You guys have taught us a lot about your own teams, and we just appreciate the support. So if you guys do like the content, the best way to support is subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. Though, let's start talking some Auburn ball, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. This is where I have some concerns. The overall roster of this team, I actually like a lot, but I have question marks at some really important positions. And the first question mark is the quarterback spot. Zach Calzada comes in. You saw TJ Finley, who just wasn't that good last year, didn't throw for over 60% completion percentage. Everything seemed hard for TJ Finley. Really jittery in the pocket, wasn't consistently accurate, just never seemed settled. What is your take on this quarterback situation coming into 2022?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're saying you're excited about it or not a little bit nervous, like you're kind of lying to yourself, because last year it really wasn't good enough. You lose Bo Nix, who was definitely the better quarterback last year, but like in his own right, not the best. So I think you are, and again, like Zach Calzada coming in, it's not like he killed it at Texas A&M by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know exactly how you'd be super optimistic about the quarterback position. I think neither Finley nor Calzada has shown even really the bright spots that you would want to see to think like, ooh, they could really play well here.
If there is a reason to be optimistic, it is that they both have really strong arms. Like, they are both gunslinger guys who have high ceilings. They just haven't really come close to reaching those ceilings. That was kind of the MO on Zach Calzada at Texas A&M, is this dude has a rocket arm. He just hasn't put that on the field on a consistent basis. I'll say another reason, a dark horse, Robbie Ashford, if you watch the spring game, was easily the best quarterback within the team. He's a guy that isn't getting a lot of buzz for that QB1 spot, but I wouldn't be surprised if he emerges as that starting quarterback heading into the season, or at least at some point during the season, because he's a guy that you don't really know what he has. TJ Finley, Zach Calzada, you've seen play football. You haven't really seen Robbie Ashford, and he could be the guy to maybe provide a spark to this offense. Now, the other question, and this is really the only two question marks I have, but they're important spots. Quarterback, then who's catching passes? Kobe Hudson transfers out. That one hurts. What? Demetrius Robertson, the transfer from, I believe, Clemson. He's also heading out. There's just a big vacancy at that pass catcher spot. There's not a guy that you feel really good about being that wide receiver one. Dill, you watched a few games. Who do you think kind of emerges, or do you think somebody can emerge?
So I think, honestly, this team's going to be led by tight ends and running backs, because I actually think they have like some legit stars at both those spots. But the one guy I think maybe you keep an eye on is number 6, Javarius Johnson, because like, if you saw the moments of him, he can flat out fly, and he running down Texas A&M, like they didn't hit him on the pass, but like I think that just shows you the guy's got some real speed. That's, I think, going to be important, because again, I think how they're going to generate their offense is a little more underneath and in using the two backs and the two tight ends. And if they can just get one of these wide receivers to at least give them some explosiveness, be able to hit a big play once in a while, I think that'd be really helpful for them. And frankly, I think Javarius Johnson could be that guy.
Yeah, he is phenomenal. That's what I have in my notes. He's great after the catch. I would look for him as well. And you said it best. This is going to be a run first offense. The only concern I have is if you're a run first offense, you got to have some sort of threat to pass, or you're going to see 8-man boxes pretty consistently. That's what Auburn saw a lot last year. But we can gush over the run game a little bit. You have quite possibly the two best running back duos in the country. Tank Bigsby, a verified star, one of the best running backs in the country. And then Jarquez Hunter, a 3-star true freshman last year who I had never heard of in this stats. And you watch him play 6.7 yards per carry. The dude is electric in space. He runs the ball hard. Tank Bigsby and Hunter are going to be a very, very good running back duo behind an experienced offensive line. The offensive line not great at times last year, but they bring back a lot of guys who are going into their 5th and 6th year that you feel decent about. And again, the story is you're going to see a lot of 2 tight end sets. They're going to try to run the football.
I also think they can play both running backs at the same time because Hunter can legit catch the ball out of the backfield really well. Bigsby's solid. I don't think he's quite as good as Hunter, but 2 guys who can catch the football, especially in Hunter. So I think you can play both of them. And you're probably just gonna need to run a bit of a creative offense because you just are a little capped at the wideout spot. Although again, if Johnson can just make plays for them and at least make you aware that if you're not cognizant, he can burn you down the field. I think they can be good because again, you talk about Shanker, excellent tight end.
Yes,
Luke Deal, I think, is a guy who could be very good. I don't think you saw a ton of him last year, but the moments you saw him, he looked pretty solid. So you got 4 weapons. If you can just get a little bit of work out of Johnson, maybe a little bit of work out of number 11, I think you can be pretty good.
And a few other names to keep your eye on. Quinn Moore transfers in from LSU. And then Landon King. This is a guy that you haven't seen much, 2021 kid. He's like a tight end wide receiver hybrid. He's a big body dude, 220. He's a guy that I heard looked good in spring camp. He's a good athlete. So maybe keep an eye on him as well. But again, that's probably the 2 biggest questions of this whole team is who's going to be throwing the balls and who's going to be catching the balls. If they can figure out they don't need to be great. They don't need to be one of the best passing offenses in the country. They don't need to have the best wide receiver groups in the country. They can just be average. I think this offense will be decent. Now, their offense only needs to be decent because we're both very, very high on this defense. And it's
going to play some defense for sure.
With one of the better defensive lines in the country, the depth might be a concern. You lose a lot of depth players from the transfer portal. But if you're talking about their 1 deeps, their starters, they're really good up front, Dale.
I mean, I think you got 2 legit NFL players in Colby Wooden and Derek Hall. He's might be a first round.
I think so. I love him
up on the top 20 kind of guy. He's an elite player. I think. I don't think he gets nearly the respect he deserves. Yeah. And then Colby Wooden's just really good. He can play a little outside, play a little inside, really versatile, and just a playmaker. So I think you have 2 stars leading it, and then I think Marcus Harris is pretty good too. The only concern you maybe could have is they're a little small for the most part. And yet Arkansas ran it on them a little bit. But what you saw them do against Bama, which you saw them do against Penn State, they're really, really good. So this is going to be a tough team for a lot of teams.
And it starts up front when we look at defenses that we both do this. We lean towards really valuing that defensive line. If you have guys that allows you to rush 4, drop 7, it helps your defense run so much better. And they got you said a plethora of guys who can get after the passer. And Derek Hall was a guy I was scouting for the 2022 NFL draft until he decided to come back another year. He very well could have left, and that might speak to the idea that Brian Harsin hasn't lost control of the locker room like the media might portray. Colby Wooden, again, the hybrid guy. And then a guy you didn't mention, Iku Leota, number 55. He caught my eye. He had 10 tackles for a loss, 7 sacks, was productive. Didn't really play as much as I would have liked just because they were so good with guys like Derek Hall. But keep an eye on him as well. Zacchaeus Walker, number 3. I liked some flashes of him. But, yeah, they're a good group. And at the linebacker spot, you lose a guy like Jacoby McLean. That hurts. But Owen Popo, who didn't play, he's very good.
And then so that's kind of what you have. Of course, you are losing a bit, but you're getting him back. He should be really good. I thought Wesley Snyder, you saw a little bit. I'm kind of interested to see what he looks pretty athletic. Not a ton from him last year just because he wasn't playing much, but I think the front seven just should be really good because you have a great linebacker in Popo, and then just a defensive line you think is going to dominate. So I think as long as you're not really weak around like in the other two spots, maybe a Viper star type hybrid guy in the other linebacker, I think you're going to be really tough in the front seven.
Then in the secondary, I think you lose a guy like Roger McCreary, Smoke Monday, two really good football players. We loved Roger McCreary in the 2022 NFL draft, but there's a lot of guys you like a lot. We'll talk about the transfers first. DJ James comes over from Oregon. I was really surprised to see his name in the transfer portal because he was great for Oregon. You get Craig McDonald coming over from Iowa State. I like Nehemiah Pritchett. He's very, very good cornerback. Donovan Kaufman, and then a guy like Jalen Simpson, who, if he can stay healthy, I really like the cut of his jib too, so to speak. The secondary is going to be a strength, even though you lose Roger McCreary and Smoke Monday.
I actually kind of agree. I think the secondary is in a pretty good spot because, I think Nehemiah Pritchett's very good. And then again, you're adding some quality transfers and just guys who've played a fair amount. Zion Puckett played a lot. Jalen Simpson played a lot. So you got a pretty experienced unit with some guys who I think can really play football. And a good unit last year, frankly, like a really good secondary.
So pulling up their schedule, Vegas doesn't love Auburn this year, and I get it. If you have a question at quarterback, it's really hard to be a favored team heading into a college football season, and they do have questions at quarterback. 6.5 wins. So it's really, they're not expecting Auburn to be a great team this year. I love how the schedule plays out. Your first 5 games are all at home. You get 2 kind of layup games. Mercer should take care of business. San Jose State should take care of business. And whoever starts at that quarterback should be able to get some confidence. Heading into the game at Penn State, they're coming to Auburn after a tough loss last year in Happy Valley. This will be a fun game where you're really going to get a sense of what Auburn is this year.
Yeah, and I mean, if they can play really good defense, I think you can hold a Penn State team to under 21 points for sure. Because Penn State's not going to be a team I think is going to flood the stat sheet on offense. And again, I think this defense is very capable of being shut down and making it very hard.
And if they can win that game, which would, I don't know if it'd be an upset. I would guess that line's going to come in pretty close to even because Penn State might be the better team, but on the road at Auburn, it's going to be a good game. You can get that win, go 3-0. You probably beat Missouri at home. And then you're 4-0, having LSU, who has a ton of new faces into their program with the new head coach, coming to Auburn. It's not out of this world to say they'll be 5-0. Am I going to call their starting 5-0? Probably not. Probably closer to 4-1 with them maybe dropping the game to Penn State or LSU. But 4-1, 5-0 going on the road to Georgia, Ole Miss, where you might not beat Georgia, but you certainly can beat Ole Miss. Then you get your off week, and then you really get into the crux of the SEC schedule. You get Arkansas at home. A lot of their winnable games are at home. Like the teams like Missouri, LSU, Arkansas. Those are games that if Auburn wants to have a 9-win season, 10-win season, they got to win, and you're getting them at home. You go on the road to Mississippi State. Very winnable game. Texas A&M at home. That's another winnable.
It's not unwinnable because they're going to hold them to very few points. So, like, when you can keep teams to under 21, 17 points, like, you can win all those games no matter how bad your offense is.
Western Kentucky should be a win, and then you go on the road to Alabama where, Alabama will be a double-digit favorite. But those games are always close.
Auburn bangs with them every year.
Every year. It doesn't matter. That game, it doesn't matter how good Auburn is and how bad Alabama is or vice versa, how good Alabama is and how bad Auburn is. That game is going to be close every single year. Last year, Alabama was favored by 10-plus points in it. Auburn should have won that game. And so, again, there's not a ton of teams on the schedule where it's like, oh, that's an automatic loss. Because you noted, this defense will be one of the better defenses in the country.
When you play defense like them, there's just no automatic losses. I think they can be that good on defense.
And you'll hang in there. You cut down the turnovers. Your turnover margin was +1. So average that ranked 64th nationally, smack dab in the middle.
But that's just because they were machines turning the ball over last year.
Yeah, and if they can fix that and just play, almost model their game like Georgia last year. Like Georgia didn't have a very explosive offense. They had to run the ball a lot, and then when they needed to throw, they made the throws. If Auburn can do that, when you're asking TJ Finley or Zach Calzada to make this throw, they'll be a good team. Now, am I picking them to have 10 wins? Probably not, just because the quarterback situation is not great. But I think they're better than 6 wins here.
An 8-win season's, I think, pretty good for Auburn.
And I
that
think
means you won a lot of good games that you should win, and I think you're proud of that season.
And you look at their season last year, 6-7. I mean, they were power ranked top 30. They were still a good team. It's just when you slip at Auburn, the schedule doesn't. The schedule is still going to be really hard. And so I like this Auburn team. It was fun previewing them because this defense is, when I was watching some of the games back, the guys who they have returning, you have to feel very, very excited about. A couple of those guys I think I'm going to include in my All-American teams, certainly my All-SEC teams. Guys, I appreciate you guys checking us out. Again, if you guys do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.